group of Christians and Jews gathered in New York City to honor those who've stood with Israel and who support her right to exist. And Pat was there. He was honored for his longtime commitment to the Jewish state. Wendy Griffith has that story.
At the gathering hosted by Eagles Wings Ministry, Pat Robertson recalls a meeting in 1974 with then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, where after sensing the weight of the world on the Prime Minister's shoulders, Pat, while overlooking Jerusalem, made a covenant with God.
That whatever happened, however unpleasant it might be, whatever enemies might arise, whatever the cost, that I and the ministries that I was in charge of would stand with Israel. And ladies and gentlemen, after 30 years, I'm pleased to say I have kept that pledge. We've stood with Israel.
Pat put his words into action. In 2000, he established CBN's news bureau in Jerusalem. In 2006, during the war between Israel and Hezbollah, Pat didn't just give analysis, he was there and experienced the war firsthand.
And in 2010, the law firm that he founded, that I have the pleasure of serving as chief counsel, the American Center for Law and Justice, walked into the International Criminal Court in The Hague, defending Israel's right to engage in self-defense as it was being attacked.
Pat Robertson also defends Israel's right to build on its own land.
Recently, the United States State Department has complained because the Jews want to build apartment houses in their capital. Can you imagine anything as outrageous as that? This is the Jewish capital. Of course they can build an apartment building. It belongs to them. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the eternal, undivided capital of Israel, and it shall not be taken away from them.
Christian and Jewish leaders gathered here in New York City say there's never been a more important time to stand together for the sake of Israel.
Let's not mince words. The Judeo-Christian civilization, Western civilization, is under attack. And we are perceived as being a unit, inseparable, quite so. And we are literally fighting for our lives and for the future of our communities and our faiths.
Because of Pat's ongoing stand for Israel, Eagles Wings Ministry named a scholarship for Pat. The Israel Experience College Scholarship will send a young Christian to Israel each year in his name.
He has had always in his heart a special love for Israel and the Jewish people. So we could think of no better honoree to recognize in our banquet this year than honoring Pat Robertson.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, New York.
Well, that's wonderful. That is an honor,
It was a thrilling moment. There's something in my heart for Israel, and when I get up to speak, it's from the heart, it's very passionate, and they responded. They on their feet cheering. I mean,
well, there's never been a time, probably in our lifetimes, where it's been more important to stand for Israel.
Well, what that rabbi says is the Judeo-Christian values of Western civilization are under attack right now by an organization that wants to bring us back to the desert kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the 8th century. And we've got to fight this tendency. It's creeping, it's galloping if possible. And we stand with Israel, but as one of the honorees told me, he said, there are only 5 million of us, and there are 80 million of you evangelicals. We understand how important you are to Israel. And I think if I read back, Terry, over the literature, in the Middle Ages, the things that were written against the Jews by Christians were absolutely scathing. It was horrible. Martin Luther, John Calvin, these others, but Luther particularly, was scathing in his denunciation of the Jews. That isn't the case any longer. The evangelicals understand our common heritage, and I appreciate Mr. Stearns, Dr. Stearns, for what he wants to do to bring, he wants to bring Christian university students to Israel, to experience Israel, and to understand and be ambassadors for Israel in their communities.
And praying for the peace of Israel is an admonition in Scripture to all of us.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.